Welcome to this third in the series of 3 videos on basic uses of spreadsheets. In the last video we looked at a simple formula where we multiplied the contents of 2 cells together. Now in this third video we're going to look at 2 additional formulas where we're using the sum function and the average function on a basic spreadsheet. So let's start by looking at the spreadsheet itself, and here we've got the spreadsheet. It's what I call a cafe spreadsheet because it's got the number of meals sold from Monday to Friday, 4 different meals. Now let's start by just increasing the size of this a little bit so that we can see what we're working with. And what I'm going to do is, well, what I could do is I could highlight the spreadsheet that I've worked on so far and increase the size of that. But rather than doing that, I'm going to highlight the whole spreadsheet, and I'm going to do that by pointing in the corner between column A and row 1, in other words up in this top left hand corner. Okay, so it's between the A and the 1 in the corner here, and when I point there and click, it highlights the whole spreadsheet like that. And that means that anything that I apply now to this spreadsheet, it will go to the whole spreadsheet and not just to this section here, which I was going to highlight at first. Okay, so the font size at the moment is size 11, and if I change the font to size 18 instead, that is now applied to the whole of this spreadsheet, including the cells that I've worked on so far. Now because I've done that, notice that the label fish and chips doesn't fit into column D now, and the label Monday doesn't fit into column E. Now so that I can auto width the whole of that spreadsheet at once, with the spreadsheet highlighted, I can now point between column A and column B there and double click, and that auto widths, as it's called auto width, the whole spreadsheet. So the whole of the spreadsheet, including the cells I've used so far, is now auto width to fit the contents of the cells. Okay, so we can see a bit more of it now, and I've automatically set the size of the font used in all of the spreadsheet to size 18. So what about these cells? So what we're showing at the moment, as I said, is a cafe spreadsheet. So this cell, for instance, shows that on Wednesday I sold 30 ham salads, and on this cell it shows that I sold 45 of Betty's hot pot. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a couple of formulas. We're going to use a sum formula here to add up the total number of fish and chip meals sold over 1 week. So let's start by adding a label here that just says total, and press enter. And I'll do the same here, but here it's going to be the total number of meals sold on Monday, and that's going to go there. So I'll put a label here of total meals and press enter. Now before I go any further, it might be a good idea if you copied what I've got so far. So if you press the pause button on the video there, copy what I've got on the spreadsheet onto your blank spreadsheet, and then start again or take the pause off once you've got to this point, just to emphasize that D3 is empty. The meals start in D4 and go down to D7. Then I've got the label total meals. Going across in E3 I've got Monday as far as I3, Friday, and the label total in J3. And if you want to get the same results as me, obviously you need to copy the same data as I've got in those cells from E4 down to I7. Okay, so copy that data, and once you've got all that data, start off the video again and we'll go through the formulas that we're going to use. Okay, so I'm assuming now that you've copied the spreadsheet that I've set up so far onto your spreadsheet. Let's start adding the formulas now. So if I want to get a total here of the fish and chip meals sold over the period of 1 week, I'm going to use what's called a sum formula. And I do that by pressing the equals key first, and that informs Excel that I am, or whatever I type next is part of a formula. Okay, so equals, then I type sum, which is the function that I'm using as part of this formula. I open brackets, and immediately I've done that, Excel is now trying to help me make up the formula. It says what numbers or what cell numbers are you using to add together? Well, I'm actually adding a range of cells, this range from this point here, E4, to this point, I4. And if I click on E4, it automatically highlights that cell and it puts that cell reference into the formula, E4. I then add a colon. Okay, so there's the colon, the double dot. Ignore this E4 thing for now. And I click on the last cell that I want to add, or the last cell of my range. So when I click there, it changes this now, so it says from E4 colon to I4, and it's highlighted that range that I'm adding. And then close the brackets, and that's my formula complete. So the formula is saying equals to tell Excel that it's a formula, then the function that I'm using, which is sum, and then the range that I want the sum for. In other words, from E4 to I4, and I separate the two with the colon. Press enter, and that carries out or completes the formula, and it gives me a total of 187. Now there's a slightly faster way of doing that, so I'm just going to delete that and do that again. So I've clicked on that formula, or clicked on that cell, and I'm pressing delete on the keyboard, and that rubs it out. Well, let's do that once more. So equals sum bracket, but this time instead of clicking on cell E4, I'm going to point at it, hold down my mouse button, and drag across to I4. In other words, I'm dragging across the range that I want to put into my formula. Let go there, close the brackets, and press enter, and that's a slightly quicker way of doing things rather than typing the colon key and clicking on the last one. Okay, now I'm going to do the same down here. In this case, I'm getting the total of sales, total of meals sold on the Monday. So same process, equals sum brackets, drag down from the fish and chips one from E4 to E7, let go, close the brackets, press enter. So I've got the total there again. Now if I go back to this first one, we could keep doing that. We could add a sum formula here and here and here and keep doing that going across there. But if we were doing a more complicated, a more detailed spreadsheet, you don't really want to be repeatedly typing out formulas like that when it's going to be the same sort of formula. So what we can do is copy that formula down to these cells. That copying process is known as replication, or we are said to be replicating that formula. And to replicate it, we point at the corner of the cell there, at what's called the handle. This little square here in the bottom corner that you can see is called the handle of the cell. So if I move down, you can see that the thick white cursor changes to a thin black cursor like that, and you know then that you are pointing at the handle of the cell. So let's do that again. Point there, hold the mouse button down, drag down and let go, and it replicates the formula. And you can see, if I click on that first one, here's the formula bar. So that is the result of the formula. This shows the formula that was used in that cell. So in order to get that total, it said sum E4 I4. Notice that if I click there now, it says sum E5 I5 there, sum E6 I6, and so on. Now it's automatically updated the formula as I've copied down. That's what's called relative referencing. E4 I4, E5 I5, E5 I6, and so on. Okay, so Excel automatically updates that as I copy, and it'll do the same here. So if I copy across, okay, so point at the corner, copy across as far as Friday, let go, and it automatically updates. So instead of E4 E7, it now says F4 F7, G4 G7, and so on. Okay, so we've created a sum formula, and we've copied or replicated that formula down and replicated it across in that case. Now let's do a second formula, which this time uses an average. So I'm going to find out the average number of fish and chip meals sold each day over the period of 1 week. So let's put in a label, average, and press enter. Notice that it doesn't fit into that column, column K. So I want to auto width column K, and to do that I point between K and L at the top and double click, and I'll add the same label down here, but I'll put average meals and press enter, because that's showing the average number of meals sold on a Monday for each of the 4 different types of meal. Okay, so first formula in here, we're going to tell it it's a formula by pressing the equals key, and then the function is called average. We open brackets and we drag across the range that we want for the average. So from Monday to Friday. We're not included the total in this, we just want Monday to Friday. Close the brackets and press enter. Now we don't usually get 30 or sell 37.4 meals, so I'll show you how to change that in a moment. But before we do that, let's go to that one. Let's point at the handle in the corner and drag down. Okay, so we get that for all of them. And then let's do that for Monday to Friday. So equals average, brackets, and drag down from that one, from the fish and chip meal, down to the lasagna meal. Let go, close the brackets, and press enter. So we've got a nice round average there, but when we copy that across, I think we'll find that's it, that doesn't work on all of them. So how do we get rid of this decimal place? Well, if I highlight those 4, notice here that I'm on the home menu, and on the home menu in the number section here we've got these two tools. And if I point at the first one, that says increase decimal places. This one says decrease. So if I click on that, that decreases or takes off one of the decimal places. And if I do the same at the bottom, drag across, and then decrease the decimal, and again, then that takes off the decimal place. So we've got a round number of meals, which makes more sense. Okay, so that's my spreadsheet completed. I'm just looking at the sum, the total, and the average number of meals. Let's just smarten it up a bit though, because we want it to look a bit more presentable. So first of all, I'll add a grid to the spreadsheet that I've produced, and I'll do it for that section. You'll see why in a moment. In the font section of this menu, we've got this tool. If I point at it, just waiting for it to give it my tooltip. Let's try again. There it is. And it says bottom border. We don't want a bottom border. We want, from this drop down menu here, all borders. So if I click on all borders, it does that section, and then I'll highlight this section here and do that icon again, because it's set on all borders now. Okay, and I click again. Now I just avoided doing that bit because we don't want an empty section bordered, so we'll just leave it like that. And then I'll add a bit of colour, so I'll highlight Monday to Friday, and I'll use this colour that we've got at the moment, fill colour, which is yellow, and I'll do the meals in yellow. Let's do the total heading or label in a different colour. So if you click on the drop down arrow next to the paint tin, and we'll have, let's say, that one. Now while that's still set at that colour, let's do that total the same, and then we'll have the average in a different colour again. Let's have a lightish green this time, and we'll do that average label in the same colour. And last of all, just to show you one extra tool that you could use, let's have a look at the meals sold on the Monday, just for those there. So I'm just highlighting it for Monday as far as the lasagna and chips, and what I'm going to do is produce a graph or a chart for those figures. Sometimes it can show things up a little better if you look at a chart rather than looking at a row of figures or a column of figures. So now that I've highlighted that section there, I'm going to tell it to insert a chart. We've got the chart section here. I want this one, which is a column chart, so I'll click there, and I just want a simple 2D column chart, so I'll click there, and we end up with that. And I can point at this white section here and drag it over a touch, and then use the handle, using that word again, handle, in the bottom corner, just to drag the chart a little bigger. And you can see what I mean. It's obvious from that we've sold more Betty's Hot Pots on Monday than we have the other ones. Whereas just looking at numbers, it might not be that obvious straight away. Okay, so what we've got then there is a spreadsheet that we've set up. We've used the sum formula, we've used the average formula, we've added some colour and some formatting to the spreadsheet, and we've created a simple chart. Have a go at those yourself, and you'll be some way towards using a spreadsheet. Have a go.